1, 2, 3, 4. Well, you got it.
I'm Amy Dimock, Operations Coordinator for Public Works.
Adam McDonald, Operations Manager, Public Works.
And I'm here to tell you more about potholes.
Welcome to this episode of Tell Me More, the podcast that explores the stories and people behind the services, projects, and policies at the City of Kingston. I'm your host, Jen Panarski. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that has drivers gripping their steering wheels a little tighter and cyclists checking their tire repair kits at this time of year, potholes. And while potholes might seem like that they appear overnight, we'll learn from Adam McDonald and Amy Dimock, two members of the Public Works team, why it seems like there's more potholes in the spring, how climate change in Kingston's beautiful lakeside location create challenges for road maintenance, but opportunities for innovation, and, with the help of AI and residents, why potholes are being detected and, most importantly, repaired faster than ever. We want to learn a little bit more about the people behind the scenes at the city and the work that you do. So how long, Amy, have you been at the city, and what does a typical day look like for you? And then we'll turn it over to Adam.
I have been with the city for 24 years. I have worked for Public Works for approximately a year. A typical day for me involves responding to customer service requests and working with our customer service team on inquiries that we receive. I also work with the managers and supervisors on operational plans, whether that be short-term for the day or long-term, such as upcoming projects.
But Public Works is a 24/7 operation, so Adam, maybe that speaks to more of your role in helping coordinate everything.
I'm usually in between 6 and 6:30, so I'll check in with our night crew because we're split between, we have basically half our staff on nights and half our staff on days during winter operations, so come in, talk to that group, get any details they need ironed out for the day, and then meet with our staff that are going to start at 8 o'clock. We do a half-hour planning at 7:30, list the priorities, review staffing, then move into everything else that happens. So planning, procurement, working on customer service, on KPIs, on responses to residents, to counselors.
So no day is the same, no matter what, and it requires knowing a little bit about everything, including knowing a lot about the city.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
Adam, you said a little bit about KPIs, and we'll get on to that, but the question everybody wants to know is how many potholes are there actually in Kingston?
In 2024, we filled 14,160 potholes. The previous year, 2023, we were over 22,000. A lot of that reflects on improvements that have been made to the road network, but also weather conditions. So as we know, the 2023-2024 winter was pretty light. So that really does reflect in the amount of potholes in the spring especially. This winter was more classic, and we're seeing the effects on our roads right now. So I think, Amy, we're up around over 2,000 potholes since Jan 1, I think, this year.
That's correct. We're at about 2,250.
Can you tell me a little bit more about why potholes are formed or how they're formed? So a bit of a science lesson if you can.
One of the common things to consider when you talk about how a pothole is created is that asphalt, although it looks very rigid, is porous, so it absorbs water. The water gets into the asphalt pores, it freezes, then obviously the sun comes out, it melts, expands and contracts in that period, which starts cracking. The cracks go through the full surface of the asphalt, then it starts to move. Traffic starts to cause it to disjoin, and then it pops out and it creates a pothole. We handle potholes in a multitude of ways as far as their classification. So when our patrol inspects the road surface using our technology, it records a pothole per the definition of a pothole in the Ontario Maintenance Standards, which is the legislative document that explains what is a pothole and then how fast that pothole needs to be repaired. A lot of the calls that we receive are called potholes, but they actually don't meet the definition of a pothole, but we still refer to them as potholes anyways. Then we also have our staff that are out working every day that record potholes as they repair them that haven't been provided to them. So they may say there's 2 potholes on Unity Road here and here, but then our staff fill 3 more potholes in the same vicinity. We still record that, and we call that proactive, so we still record that as a a pothole being repaired.
You said the things that people call a pothole aren't actually a pothole. Can you tell me what that difference would be and how would someone know what that difference is?
So a pothole has a minimum area. The definition of a pothole is tied to a minimum surface area and
Okay.
depth. So a resident may see a break in the asphalt or a crack, so something that's, maybe an inch wide by 6 inches long and is only an inch or two deep. Well, to them that is a pothole, and we will treat it as a pothole, so we will fill it with temporary or permanent asphalt, but it actually doesn't meet the criteria of what a pothole is defined as in the legislation. So the term is broad, but the actual physical shape and size and depth of a pothole has a strict definition based on the road class and the maintenance standards.
Okay, that's really interesting. What I'm hearing is that weather and the number and weight of vehicles on the road contribute to this faster breakdown. Can you tell me, again, like we talked a little bit about dispelling the myth that potholes are only caused by poor road maintenance, can you tell me how climate change in Kingston's location along Lake Ontario affects the pothole severity and frequency?
Well, it certainly has increased the amount of potholes that are weather driven in the last, I would say, 20 to 25 years. Go back to the 1980s, let's say. A typical winter had a freeze in the start of the winter in December and then a thaw in the spring. So that would happen once. Now we get multiple freeze-thaw events over the course of the winter. So that expansion and contraction in the asphalt surface happens multiple times versus once over the course of a winter. So we're actively filling potholes December, January, February, March, and April, which March and April are typically the pothole season, if you want to call it that. That's when everything opens up in the spring melt, and they really, it ties into our load restriction season, right? But now you go through that period, even this winter. It snowed during Christmas and was cold, then it was warm the first week of January, then it cooled off for an extended period, and now we're going through that process again, right? So that really does affect the condition of the road and the formation of potholes. The other thing that really affects it is extreme heat. Asphalt cement, which is the oil in the asphalt that holds it all together, it's built to a specification of a high temperature range and a low temperature range. So our engineering department and the contractors that we use to do major capital projects and the asphalt industry as a whole have been working year after year to adjust those ranges to better support extreme heat, but also better support the major fluctuations in temperatures we have over the winters.
That's really interesting to me because I think the community thinks of pothole season being spring, and that's when they most often see crews out finding and repairing potholes. But that perspective about the extreme heat, and especially the extreme heat that we've seen over the last couple of summers, how that also has a role in the creation of potholes.
For sure. So it just deteriorates the road surface that much faster.
Mm-hmm.
So we do some things along with the engineering group to try to do preservation of the road surface. So we use like a rejuvenator on newer paved roads that will seal the pores and add life to the road surface. Obviously we do crack sealing, microsurfacing, all these types of preventative maintenance to try to extend the life of the road, because there are a lot of factors that affect the aging of asphalt in current conditions.
So it's almost like you are, between engineering and public works, you're almost like a dermatologist for those roads. Find the cracks and repair them, nice little treatment, a little bit of rejuvenation for the roads.
That's right.
Earlier in the conversation, you shared that the technology plays a role in road maintenance, with truck-mounted cameras, GIS maps, and AI helping you to proactively find and fill potholes. So is there a way residents can help report potholes to us? And if you could also tell me a little bit more about that technology.
Essentially, the technology involves a truck-mounted camera, which is in a vehicle, and somebody drives that vehicle throughout our roads on certain patrols every day. That camera itself has parameters to pick up potholes that are not meeting our MMS requirements. So when it picks up a pothole that is not meeting that MMS requirements, it then will alert us, which then we add to our road maintenance. So what happens on that road maintenance is that every time that a pothole is either reported by our AI technology, by a customer, or proactively when our crews go out to fill it, it gets indicated on this spreadsheet on a mapping system, which then will say at what status it needs to be filled by. So if it is one that was picked up by the camera system, it will, dependent upon the road classification, will give us a time for repair. If it's reported by the citizen, for example, if I use Princess Street, it's class 2, that would need to be fixed within 4 days. If it's one that is a residential road, which is a class 5, we have 30 days for repair.
And that's based on those legislated standards.
That's correct.
Which is different because I think when a resident encounters a pothole, it really is very inconvenient for them. But it's important to understand that there are rules and legislation that the city has to follow. And just because somebody doesn't see someone out in the community filling a pothole right as soon as they report it, it doesn't mean that we haven't received that concern and that we're not addressing it, right?
That's correct. As soon as we receive a concern, whether it be through our customer service portal or directly through the website, there is a reporting tool on the Public Works website. We place that location in our assignments for the crew, and it will be based upon the classification of roads. We will get it that day, but it may not be fixed for 28 days if it's a classification that requires 30 days. Obviously, those classifications are based upon traffic volume. So if you're on Princess Street, you're going to want to have that pothole filled quicker because it will become larger and because of the traffic volume. If you're on a small residential road, there is not such a high traffic volume. So therefore, if the pothole does not get filled for 25 days, it's not going to potentially create such a larger issue.
So what I'm hearing is that when potholes reported, you know, and you'll address it as soon as you can and definitely within those legislated timeframes.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's the minimum standard, is the legislated timeframes. Our operations probably allow for a faster repair because of the way that we schedule our crews and disperse them through the city. So when we have pothole reports at a manageable level, we won't as frequently focus on the priority. We'll just send a crew into a zone. So a resident living on Lincoln Drive may report a pothole and have it filled the next day for the simple fact that we're at a manageable level of reports, and we've just dispatched our crews to certain areas of the city. So they may be covering a plow zone, they may be covering a quadrant of a subdivision. And obviously, one of the things with potholes is potholes tend to happen on aged surfaces. So there's more potholes in areas that are obviously not new developments. So some of the older subdivisions, Bay Ridge West, Burrito Heights, obviously the downtown, there's concentrations of potholes in certain areas there that are in older infrastructure where, Catwoods, Woodhaven, Greenwood Park, those areas, we're getting a lot less frequent reports about potholes there.
It would also likely have to do a lot with the density of a community as well. The more people who might have access to internet or telephone to make those reports as well. So they're seeing a pothole and reporting it as well is what I'm trying to understand.
And traffic volume, to Amy's point, is also going to play a role, because if there's a pothole on Cataraqui Woods Drive, there's probably going to be multiple calls in, where if there's a pothole on a residential street, it could just be the closest resident to the closest house to the pothole.
Amy, walk me through what happens when you get a pothole report, either from the Public Works team with those patrols that are out there, or from a resident. How do you start that repair and then close the loop with the resident to let them know that the work is done?
So essentially, when we get a pothole report from a resident, we put where the pothole is located onto a mapping system. That mapping system is then given to the crews, and the crews go out and fix the pothole depending upon where it is on that map. If it's our group that is out filling potholes proactively, they indicate on that map, or they write down where they filled a pothole, and then we indicate it on the map as being filled and complete. So then if we do receive a report, say from somebody who happened to go down that road 3 days ago and noticed a pothole there, we can say it's actually already been completed.
That probably makes your life a whole lot easier.
It does.
And also, it just improves the efficiency of the city and how often you can get people out doing other types of work, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about technology. What innovations are you looking at to make our roads more resilient?
Well, I think certainly this is kind of a broader conversation that includes engineering, transportation, but one of the things we definitely look at is changes to the specification of the new asphalt that's being applied to our roads to make sure that it's the best product we can get for the type of climate that we have in Kingston, which is a lot of freeze thaw, warming, cooling. The temperatures are always adjusting. We do get dry summers for the most part, snowy winters with lake effect snow and being close to Lake Ontario. So how we can put down the best new asphalt we can, then also preserve that asphalt to get longer life out of it, because it is a very major capital expense to get longer life out of it before it starts to fail to the point of potholes. So Rejuvenator, which is basically a sealer for the roads, crack sealing, microsurfacing, in kind of a scheduled process through the life of a new road to get 30, 35, 40 years of traveling time on it before potholes start to appear. So that's some of the big things that we do as a group to try to extend the life of our roads, to make that capital purchase last longer. Internally with Public Works, we do things like, we do a lot of trials here because we have the in-house ability to test things and monitor them. So some of the things that we're doing in 2025 is asphalt recycling, which is where you can actually take the asphalt that comes out of the pothole, process it through a machine, add bitumen to it, lay it back in the pothole as a permanent repair instead of a temporary repair. So one of the things we hadn't mentioned previous is during the winter months when hot mix asphalt is not available due to the season, we use what's called cold mix. Well, cold mix is a temporary repair, so a lot of times we have to go back in better conditions, remove the cold mix if it hasn't been removed by traffic, and then replace it with permanent asphalt, where asphalt recycling will give us the ability to use a warmer mix product that hopefully will last more permanently throughout the season, because you're actually recycling the product that's come out of the pothole to put it back in.
So that would explain why somebody, if they see a crew at a specific location several times, it could be that you've gone out and you've addressed that pothole right away because you know that it's important to the community, and
That's right.
but then they have to go back, and it's not necessarily because they didn't do a good job the first time. It's because the weather conditions have changed and they're going out to fix it for that repair to be as durable for as long as possible.
100%. And so, I mean, that happens not just for us, but that also happens for Utilities Kingston, right? So if they have to excavate in the roadway to fix a water main break or leak over the course of the winter, which happens frequently, they can only repair that area to a temporary condition until they have the ability to do a permanent repair as well. It's the same for contractors that have to do work in the right of way during the winter months. So there is a lot of road work that happens in the spring and early summer that's a result of things that had happened in the winter that just weren't able to be fixed completely. So we have that. What we're hoping with things like asphalt recycling and more permanent solutions that work in cold weather is to try to narrow that up and shorten that list of things that we have to go back and fix in the spring and summer. But I mean, some of the things that we repair in the winter as well require resurfacing. There's a few spots I can think of right now where we're actually going to have to go down and repave a section of road due to a failure that's happened over the winter.
Amy, earlier in the conversation, you shared that technology plays a role in road maintenance.
Absolutely. The City of Kingston residents can report potholes either online through our city website. There's a portal on the Roads and Transportation which says report a pothole. They can also do so by calling or emailing our Contact Us Center. When you report a pothole, it's important for us to know where exactly it is. So if at all possible, if you can provide a civic address number to us, or if that's unavailable, a landmark, such as it's beside the bookstore on Princess Street, something to that effect.
Do pictures help?
Having a picture of the pothole along with a reference point for the civic address or where exactly it is on the roadway would be helpful, because oftentimes if you just take a picture of the pothole itself, it may have changed by the time our crews get out there.
And it would have changed based on all of the other factors like weather and traffic.
That's
Absolutely.
correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
My favorite question, what can you tell us about the people behind the scenes who work to maintain our city infrastructure?
We have a group of staff that I would say are dedicated to making the roads as best they can. As a public-facing group, frontline staff, they really want to show the residents of Kingston the efforts that they're making to make their roads safer. We've received in the past couple of years especially a lot of positive feedback from residents about whether it's the turnaround time from when they called in a pothole to when it was repaired. They happen to be home when the pothole crew showed up, and they comment on their professionalism and their demeanor and things like that. Our staff are very approachable, but they're also workers and taxpayers in the city as well. So they understand that we have some roads that aren't in good condition. They certainly do their best to make them better, but it's not their fault that the potholes occurred in front of someone's house or on a major highway or something like that. So they're out there going as fast as they can, trying to get everything patched up as best they can for the public, and they certainly take great pride in what they do.
Amy?
I would have to say the exact same thing. From my perspective, being relatively new to the Public Works Department, is everybody here is very willing to teach everybody else what it is that they know. They're willing to share the information, and that doesn't just go for the staff here, it goes for the general public as well. If you have a question for the crew, they're more than happy to answer you. However, just always remember that they are working, so it's important that they have the space to do so safely.
Absolutely. And with that group, safety is our number one priority, making sure that everybody goes home safe. So they have full safety equipment on. They'll want people to stand back a little bit if they're out in front of your house or off to the sidewalk, things like that. They take great pride in what they do, and they really take great pride in what efforts they make to make the city better, safer, cleaner, more beautiful. That's kind of what we do here as a whole at Public Works. So certainly they're dedicated to that cause.
What I'm hearing is that Public Works is made of a team who most likely are their residents here as well, and they really care about their work, they're proud of their work, and they also want to be able to share that knowledge with other people so that they understand sort of like the technical aspect, but also just to educate people on this is what I'm doing, but they need that space as well, to your point, Adam, to do that work safely.
Absolutely. But I think one of the most fulfilling things for the frontline staff especially is overall here we have the ability to take something that's not good and make it better, right? Whether it's a pothole, mowing grass, planting flowers, the forestry department and what they do, elevating trees and clearing brush, things like that, changing culverts, clearing ditches. Everything we do is normally an improvement on what the condition was when we got there, right? And that's a real driving motivator here at our department. And I really enjoy it. I know the staff enjoy it, and we have top to bottom great people.
I know through Contact Us, there's of course like a way to report a pothole, but there's also a mechanism to reach out and thank city staff as well. If you are a resident and you've had a really positive interaction with a Public Works team member, there's a way that you can reach out and give kudos to that staff person, and it really sort of elevates and reminds them of the importance of their work in the community.
And every compliment that we receive, we do pass along to staff. They appreciate getting those compliments because it's a self-reward for all the hard work that they do.
1, 2, 3, 4. Well, you got it.
And that wraps up our episode on potholes. I hope you enjoyed our figurative deep dive into how they form and the innovative solutions being developed to tackle them, as well as getting to know the team behind the scenes who take great pride in making Kingston a safer, cleaner, and more beautiful place to live.
Together if you say in your head.
Tell Me More is produced by the City of Kingston Communications and Public Engagement Team. A special thanks to podcast editor Heather Brown, marketing support by Courtney Klemper, and to Seasons 3 and 4 host Autumn Hume. If you liked today's episode, it really helps us if you like and subscribe to all City of Kingston podcasts by just tapping subscribe in your favorite podcast app. Not only will you get new episodes of Tell Me More in your playlist, but you'll also begin receiving episodes of Inside Kingston, our newest weekly news show, and your go-to source for quick, reliable municipal information. Thank you so much for listening to Tell Me More, and we'll talk to you next month.
Catch your eye, hold up, baby.